Good morning. I hope I find you well. My name is Talent from Transformation Team Zimbabwe, and welcome to this week's check-in session. So this month, we are going to be focusing on conflicts, the causes, the effects, and resolution. So I'm going to be focusing on communication and how it can be a cause for conflict and how it can also be used to resolve conflicts and to avoid them. So poor communication results in misunderstandings and eventually conflicts. So I'm just going to try to help you use communication effectively in a way that will reduce conflicts with the people that you are in constant touch with. So there is verbal communication. This is where we use spoken word to convey our messages, and I find this to be very easy because we can easily choose the language to use, and you can also easily choose our words. So there's also nonverbal communication, which includes facial expressions, which includes hand gestures, which includes posture and our appearance. So we find that we are constantly communicating. You cannot not communicate. So even without using your words, your appearance may be sending out a message. So there's need for you to really pay attention to what you're saying that you're not saying. So conflicts must be prevented because the consequences take a huge toll on our emotional wellness, because conflicts can be a cause for stress, anxiety, as well as tension. And having tension when you are having misunderstandings with people you live with can be difficult because it's in your face, you cannot avoid it. And it is usually the differences in opinions and views that contribute to conflicts. So there is need for one to adjust to some extent, um, to promote better relations. There is need for one to adjust, and by this I mean we really need to take a step forward and try to understand who we are talking to and what we are talking about and why. This may help us also, if we understand that people are generally different. We have different opinions, we have different perspectives, we have different experiences with life. So we're not always going to have the same view. It is not always that people are going to agree with the way we think. So this is where adjusting comes in. Try as much as you can to understand that people are different. And communication should be impressive and relevant. Conflict occurs when individuals strongly oppose each other's opinions and views, and one is not willing to compromise. So you find that when it comes to communication, most of the times conflicts arise when people are not willing to save the relationship, when people are actually out for the kill and they are trying to win. So if you step back and you consider the relationship more, you might find that we reduce our conflicts significantly because the way we communicate with those people will change, the way we send our messages will change. We will try to listen to what they are saying, we'll try to pay attention to their views, and then at the end of the day the relationship is better than it would have been if it focused on them hearing us, them taking our advice, sometimes in them taking our word for it. So I tried to compile a few things that I thought could help us to better our communication. So the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is to think carefully before we speak and to learn to control our emotions. I find that even before we choose the appropriate words to say, it's important that we listen to what the other person is saying. It's important that you actually take time to understand what they are saying before we respond. And keeping our emotions at bay is also important, because we find that if we let them loose, sometimes we might end up in violence, sometimes we might end up saying things that we regret later. So it is important for us to listen first before we respond. So someone said that when you are listening, you are giving yourself a chance to learn something new compared to when you're speaking, because when you're speaking you are saying something you already know. So it basing on that, it's to your advantage that you listen more than you speak, And when you listen more, you may find that they are saying the same thing that you're saying, just in a different way. And this can go a long way in avoiding a conflict. Because when you then reflect after something has happened, you find out that we were essentially saying the same thing, just differently. So take time to listen. Take time to listen before responding, and do not listen with the intention of responding. Listen with the intention of understanding. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is allowing others to express their views. So it's important for you to create a space, to create an environment where the people you talk to, you have the freedom to express their views. You have the freedom to say what they think and what they feel. If you block it out, you might end up in conflict. You might end up in a misunderstanding with them, because you may be imposing yourself on them, you may be imposing your views on them, and they may not have the chance to say what they think back, and that alone creates a space for misunderstanding. So you must listen to other people's opinions. You must create a space where the people can air out their views. You cannot always be right, you cannot always understand things, you cannot always get it. So there is need for you to take a step back and actually listen to other people. Create an environment where people have the chance to air their views. The third thing is, be very careful about your pitch and your tone. So you've chosen your words, you've chosen the specific language to use, but you also need to pay attention to your pitch and your tone. Some people do not appreciate being yelled at. Some people do not appreciate it when we speak to them sternly. You need to pay attention to your pitch and your tone, because people may end up missing your message because of how you are sounding. So they might also misunderstand you totally, because it may feel like you are scolding them when you're actually just trying to explain something. So there is need for you to pay attention to your pitch and your tone. You need to be polite and convincing. So as I'm speaking, you may actually find out that it is more to do with how you send your message more than what the message is about, because how you send the message is probably what the next person is going to respond to more than the message you're trying to send. So be polite and be convincing. And the fourth thing is, do not merely depend on verbal communication. So yes, verbal communication, using our words, choosing our words, and forgetting that we also need to pay attention to our facial expressions. We also need to pay attention to our gestures and the way we sit or the way we stand, our posture, as this is interpreted differently. When you're learning about etiquette, you may be interested to know that certain sitting positions convey certain messages. So you need to not merely depend on verbal communication, and you may also need to make use of written messages. You may also need to make of visual aids. This will help you, especially when at work. This will help you make sure that everyone gets the message in the way that they best can. This can also help you at home when you're speaking to your children, when you're speaking to your partner, making sure you may need to find the best way to communicate with them. This is where people talk about love languages sometimes, because it's not just the words that we use that will help ensure that our messages are understood. So do not merely depend on verbal communication. But I said this, yes you did, but did they understand it? So there's also need to make sure that when we are communicating, we are doing it in a way that is easy for the next person to understand us. The fifth thing is, you need to be very clear and straightforward. This for me stands out because there's really no need for you to make people read between the lines. There's really no need for you to go around the corner when you can just go straight to the point. The more complicated your message is, the less people are going to understand it. So there's really no need for you to make life difficult for yourself or the next person by complicating a message which you could have just conveyed in a simpler manner. So I think this is also speaking towards the language that you use. Observe your audience, observe who you're talking to, and then choose the appropriate language so that you're not so that you're clear and straightforward. um, you should also clearly state what you expect from people. Just clearly state what you expect from people instead of expecting them to assume, instead of expecting them to guess what you want. Just be clear, just be straightforward. And communication has to be precise. Avoid using words which might hurt the sentiments of other people. So this is very important, and this also calls for you to pay attention to what you're saying. Like I mentioned earlier, that you need to give people space to air their views, and you need to listen to understand them, so that when you're saying things back, you understand that this word might hurt them, this language might offend them. So pay attention to who you're talking to and what you're talking about, and then avoid use words that may hurt the next person. And then I think the last thing I'm going to be talking about is complicated terminologies. So yes, it's fancy, yes, it looks nice when you are using these big words, but be careful, because the person you're trying to talk to or the person you're trying to send a message to might miss it altogether. So there's need for you to just be clear. Like I said earlier, there is no need for you to make it complicated for you or the next person. Just because when you are communicating, we are trying to make sure that we are on the same page. We are trying to make sure that we understand and we are understood. So why should you use words that are big and complex? And for most of us, English is a second language. We had to learn it after we had grown to a certain stage. So we depend on picking the word in the context in which it is used for us to then get the full message. So to avoid misunderstandings with people you work with, to avoid misunderstandings with people you live with, you might need to make sure that you use language that is very simple to understand. So these are the few things that I had that could help us with communication and reducing conflicts with the people that we live with, that we work with, and our significant partners, even our children. So I hope you found something here that you can use. I hope you'll be using language that is very clear for everyone to understand. So COVID is still there. COVID is still affecting people, so I encourage you to take as many precautionary measures as you can. And when you feel that you're overwhelmed by everything that is going on around us, please try to find someone you can talk to, because there's really no need to harbor emotional stress when you can easily talk to someone about it and then get the help that you need. Have a blessed week. I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.